I would like to share with you what I call the biblical blueprint, because this biblical blueprint is what I found to be the fastest path to generating wealth. It's not a blueprint that I discovered in a business meeting. It's not a blueprint that I discovered in some mastermind, even though I've paid handsomely to be in a whole bunch of different masterminds over the years. This is a blueprint that I literally found in the Bible. And I would love to share this blueprint with you in order for you to also allow your true, divine, God-given wealth to start to come through. The biblical blueprint that I discovered revealed to me what I call the dividing line of wealth. And in order to understand the dividing line of wealth, it's not complicated at all. It's actually something fairly simple once you get the hang of it. Now, you've probably heard, like I've often heard, that the rich get richer. I'm here to tell you something. That's the truth. The rich tend to get richer. And you've probably heard, if you're someone who's heard the rich get richer, that the poor get poorer. And I've heard that too. Now, the thing that's super interesting is most people have heard that from multiple different places, but very few people understand where that principle actually comes from. The principle that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer is a principle that is first found in the Bible. The Bible clearly articulates this principle in a parable that was told by Jesus, found in Matthew chapter 25. In Matthew chapter 25, Jesus tells the parable of the master who goes away on a journey and leaves his 3 servants with talents. He leaves one servant with 5 talents. He leaves another servant with 2 talents, and he leaves the 3rd servant with 1 talent. Now, what's interesting is the servant who has 5 talents goes and creates a new 5 talents. He doubled up. And the servant who had 2 talents goes and produces another 2 talents. He doubled up. But the servant who has 1 talent hides the singular, sole, individual talent. And when the master comes back to do his reckoning or accounting to say, hey, where's the talents today? The first servant says, you gave me 5, here's 10 I produced in my life. The second servant says, you gave me 2, here's another 2 that I was able to make come through. But the third servant says, because I knew you, because I knew something, because of how knowledgeable I am, I hid the one you gave me and I didn't create any more. Maybe I'm crazy. And what's interesting is this: what the master says, the words, the wordplay utilized, the language shared with these servants. The first thing that's beautiful and powerful and pertinent in the predicament is that the master says to the first 2 servants, he says, you've been faithful with a little, I'll make you ruler over much. He says, you had that as a servant, but now you can go and become a ruler. So if you're ever asking yourself, how do I go from being a servant of some money to being a ruler of some true wealth? The answer is discover how to multiply what you have. It's very simple. Discover how to multiply what you have. Samuel, what do you mean? Well, let me explain what I mean. I shared with you the rich get richer. Let me tell you why. The reason why is because they're implementing the law of simply multiplication. Okay? It's very simple. Okay? We can complicate it. We can overcomplicate it. We can spiritualize it. We can analyze it. Or you can just take it as it is. Well, Samuel, how is it? So glad you asked. Let me explain. The rich get richer because they employ the law of multiplication. But then the question is, well, Samuel, if the rich get richer because they employ the law of multiplication, how comes the poor get poorer? Great question. I'm so glad you asked. The poor get poorer because they implement the law of division. Whilst rich people are multiplying, poor people are busy dividing. You see, the Bible actually tells us this. There's a powerful verse, I believe it's in Proverbs chapter 19. It says, there is much food in the tillage of the poor. What does that mean? That means poor people have great opportunity right in front of them. But let me share with you the end of that verse, because if I miss out the end of the verse, it won't seem for you to see how it actually gets worse. It says, there is much food in the tillage of the poor, but they are destroyed for a lack or a want of judgment. You see, the reason the poor get poorer is because they're implementing the law of division. They're not applying judgment to the food in the tillage so that they can turn that food in the tillage from food just for them to food for the whole village. The reason why it works like this is because money loses momentum through consumption and through liabilities. The energy found within money literally depletes, literally dilutes, and literally divides through consumption and liability. But here's what's powerful on the other side of this, because the rich get richer, right? Money literally builds momentum through compounding assets. And the thing for most people is they never ever think about how they can start the journey of compounding assets. So as a result, they very rarely get to experience the feeling of money catching momentum. The rich get richer through multiplying, and the poor get poorer through dividing. Because money loses momentum through consumption and liability. Now, the reason this is so profound and so powerful is because in this parable in Matthew 25, when Jesus comes back, the master comes back to engage the proverbial master. I've already called him Jesus. When the proverbial master comes back to see those who had the talents, he says something powerful. He says, to he who has, much more shall be given. What does that mean? The rich get richer. And then he says something equally powerful. He says, but to he who does not have, even the little that he has will be taken away from him. The poor get poorer. So if you've heard this concept, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, I'm here to tell you it's found in the Bible. But here's the funniest thing. If that's found in the Bible and it's true, a great question for me and you is, what else is found in the Bible that's equally true that can help me and you to circumvent or quickly elevate through this whole situation we've just described? And I'm here to show it to you. We've said the rich get richer because they employ the law of multiplication. We said the poor get poorer because they employ the law of division. But there's another one that most people have never heard of. And I'm so glad you're ready to receive it. Let's go. The one that most people have never heard of is right here. It's the fact that the wise, according to the Bible, get wiser. Now, the rich get richer because they apply the law of multiplication. The poor get poorer because they apply the law of division. But how comes the wise get wiser? I'll tell you why. Because they employ the law of instruction. Samuel, what's the law of instruction? The law of instruction is the principle that I was taught at the age of 20 years old, 21 years ago, by one of my first coaches, which changed my life. Let me tell you what the law of instruction is. The law of instruction was first taught to me by one of my first coaches when I was 20 years old. And he said to me, Samuel, why take 70 years to learn what you can learn in 7 hours by reading the book of someone who had to take 70 years to write the book? When I first learned the law of instruction, my life started to change. You see, when I was young, I wasn't a voracious reader. You see, when I was young, I wasn't even interested in reading until I learned the law of instruction. It was the law of instruction that allowed me to change my life. Now, you might be someone who's saying, hold on, Samuel, law of instruction. I've never heard this before. Where'd you get that from? Let's go find it. Proverbs chapter 9, verse 9. Let's go. In Proverbs chapter 9, verse 9, listen to what it says. It says, give instruction to a wise man, Give instruction to a wise man. And what happens? Watch this. And he will be yet wiser. Teach a just man, and he will increase in learning. So it's incomplete. It's not just that the rich get richer, and it's not just that the poor get poorer, but the one that most people don't discover is that the wise get wiser. The rich get richer because they employ the law of multiplication. The poor get poorer because they employ the law of division. But the wise get wiser because they employ the law of instruction. You see, if you're the kind of person who's interested in finding out what to do, then you're the kind of person who's interested in having way more leverage working for you. This is how the wise get wiser. So you can be someone who financially right now may be classified as poor, but you can shift and start to open up the wealth door the moment you start to get on the track of the wise getting wiser. The moment you start to be someone who says, I'm going to embrace instruction and change my life from a path of destruction. Give instruction to a wise man and he'll be yet wiser. The leverage to go from being wise to getting wiser is knowing what to do with your raw material. And the problem for most people is they have no idea on earth what to do with their raw material. They have no idea what to do with their income. They have no idea what to do to change their outcome. Well, what would happen if you became like the verse in Proverbs chapter 9, verse 9 has proclaimed? What would happen if you get on the path to be someone who's not just trying to be rich, getting richer, using the law of multiplication, who's not just someone who's trying to run away from being poor and ending up poorer because you've been using the law of division, but you're someone who realizes I can be wise and get yet wiser because I'm going to use the law of instruction. I'm going to use instruction to shift my life out of destruction. This is what's available to you. This is what could change everything for you. But in order for this to work for you, you have to be someone who decides to let instructions come through. If you are getting value from what I'm sharing with you right now, I want you to write the word wise in the chat. WISE. Because as you write the word wise in the chat, in the comments, you are going to be making your declaration and your proclamation for you to start taking steps of transformation. The wise get wiser. The very same way that the rich get richer, and the very same way that the poor end up getting poorer. It's because of the implementation of very simple factual laws. So the question is, are you going to use those laws to start to open doors? Or are you going to allow those laws to keep closed the formidable doors?
Small keys open big doors.